first speaker, I think, is going to be Cindy Snyder. Cindy is with Virginia Community Capital, and she's going to talk to you about credit, which is our title of this session.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
I watched your all's video, so I feel like I already know you. I watched your introduction videos. This is a full house. This is awesome.
We need money.
I understand. So as Kathy mentioned, I'm with Virginia Community Capital, so I'm Sandy Ratliff's partner in crime. We cover all of Southwest Virginia and Southside Virginia. So the reason I think that I was chosen to cover this topic is that I've had quite a few years. I'll date myself when I tell you how long, but in dealing with credit. I worked for a car dealership for 20 years, and probably 15 of those years I was in finance. So that's all I did, was try to get people approved for car loans. After I got out of that, I went into the nonprofit sector. I worked at People Incorporated for 8 years. During that time, when I was there, I went through credit counseling certification. And then now I'm with Virginia Community Capital, and I deal with small business loans. When we say small business, we mean up to $5.4 million per business. So to me, that's not small, but that's how they categorize it. And so when a lender is looking at an application, there's three primary things that we're going to look at. We're going to look at credit, your credit. Even though you're asking for a loan for your business, we're going to want a personal guarantor, so that means we're going to look at your credit as well. We want to know what collateral you have, and we want to know what the cash flow is for the business. In other words, can you afford to pay us back? So those are the three things that we look at. So tonight I'm going to talk about credit, and then Gary's going to touch on some other aspects of running a business and give you some tips. So let's jump right into it. So here are the things we're going to talk about. I want you to ask questions, though. I hate standing up here just listening to myself talk. So please ask questions and stop me in the middle anywhere. It's okay. So I want to talk about why do we even have credit reporting. We're going to touch on that a little bit. Valid uses of credit report, sources of information. We're actually going to look at a credit application, and I'm going to let you put your banker hat on, and you're going to tell me if you would loan this person money. So did everybody pick up a packet when you came in? Tanya will pass out. Raise your hand if you didn't get the packet that'll go in your binder. Because there's a sample credit application or credit report on the back we're going to look at. And then I'm going to talk to you about how you can get a free credit report, how when you look at your credit report, if you find something that's incorrect on there, how you can dispute items. I think we have one more.
Really?
Oh, there's some right here. Great, thank you.
I don't see that.
I have some extra too.
Oh, we've got extra, good. There you go. You're welcome.
Here it is.
All right, so what is a credit report? I compare this to what your grade was in school. Okay, it's an accumulation of what you've done over the course of time, and it's based on how well you've paid loans that you borrowed. It's not real complicated. We will talk about the formula that they use when they calculate your score. So why do we even have credit reports? Well, kind of just a short history on that. Back in the day, many years ago, if you didn't have money to pay for something, you would go to the local grocery store and you'd say, you know, Bob, can you let me buy groceries today and I'll pay you when I get my check on Friday? And the grocer would keep just a little ledger and he would keep track of that you owed him money, and then at Friday you'd come and pay, and that's kind of how credit worked. Well, after World War II, people started moving, and so now if I have credit with Tanya here in Abingdon and I moved to California, I left my credit behind. So now credit follows you, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the situation, but it's going to go with you wherever you go. So what does that do for you? That gives you access to your credit. Again, that's a good thing. If your credit's good, you want to take that with you. You need to think of your credit as, I equate that to cash in your wallet or your purse. You need to protect it that seriously because it can affect your financial what you pay for things in many areas, and we'll talk about that as well. So it increased the mobility of the credit, and it definitely decreased the time in credit granting decisions. How many of you have been like at Old Navy and you go up there and they're like, you want to save 10% today? If you fill out this credit card, it's like instant, you can get access to credit. So that can be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, depending on how well you manage that. So how are businesses or organizations using your credit? Well, it impacts almost every aspect of your life. It can impact whether you can rent a house or an apartment in the school district that you want your kids to be able to attend school. So, I mean, it drills down that far. It can affect the schools that your kids get to go to. It can affect whether you get approved for that home, whether you get that job. Some jobs are even checking that. Auto insurance, you'll pay a higher premium for your auto insurance if you don't have a good credit score. It can affect deposits on utilities. If you need to get electricity set up, they're going to pull your credit. If you've got good credit, they may not even require a deposit. If you don't, they could go up to $500 or more. So it will affect your financial situation in many, many areas. Can anybody think of any other thing that I haven't mentioned that your credit can affect? Well, that thing we carry with us all the time. Cell phone. It can affect whether you can get one of those. So it's very, very far-reaching. Auto insurance surprised me when I first heard about that, but they take that into account when they're figure out what it's going to cost you to carry auto insurance. So where do these credit reporting agencies get their information? They get it from you when you fill out an application. When you applied for that credit card to that department store, that information went on your credit report. They're also getting it from anyone that you owe money to. They're reporting that information monthly. Public records, if you get a judgment or a collection account goes to judgment, that can show up on there as well. Anytime you allow someone to pull your credit, it's going to show up. And that can also affect your score. So the motto that I use when it comes to shopping for anything that I'm buying on credit, you don't pull my credit until I've decided to buy. So if you go into a dealership, and I can speak from experience there, you do not want to give them your credit, your social security number, and your personal information before you go on that test drive so that they're pulling your credit, and you don't know, they may even be sending that on to banks while you're on a test drive. You don't even know if you like the car yet, and they've already affected your credit. So again, protect that just like you would cash in your wallet. You wouldn't hand somebody your wallet to hold, so think of it the same way. All right, I'm married, but I have different credit information than my husband. Is that true or false?
True. False.
False? True? True? I'm married, but I have different credit information than my husband. That is true. Just because you're married doesn't mean that you have identical credit. That doesn't mean that you don't necessarily, but it's not a guarantee. And the reason I say that is if you're husband and wife and everything you've done, you've always done it together, jointly, any credit you've taken out, it may look the same, but that's only because you did joint credit. It's not like the fact that you're married. It's totally different connection there. That's kind of a trick question. All right, so let's pull out our sample credit report. It would be the last page in the handout. Or that you picked up, not that I gave you. No? If you don't have one of these, raise your hand. Do we have any extra of the one sheet?
She didn't get this package, she got the Bristol package.
Okay, so if you have an extra pack, we got it. Nope, they got it now.
They got it?
False alarm, we got it. Okay, so, all right, we're gonna look at this credit report and go down the different sections. And this one sample does not mirror what is in your hand, so let's go by what is in your hand. I've just broken down the sections up here. So the first section of a credit report is gonna have your personal identification information. That's gonna have your names. It's gonna have any name that you've ever applied for credit. So in my case, I go by Cindy, but my legal name's Cynthia. My maiden name is Green. My married name's Snyder. So I'm gonna see all those different combinations on there. And you will as well if you've ever applied for credit in any other name. Current address, previous address. One of the things that I would alert you to, if you pull your credit, if you see an address on there that you have never lived at, that shows up in that top section, that needs to be a red flag to you. Somebody may have tried to apply for credit in your name at a different address. So just put that in the back of your mind as something to look for. Latest reported employment, that's self-reported. So that's whatever you put when you applied for that last credit card. That's what it's gonna have on there. Alerts and validations. You can put an alert on your credit report if somebody stole your wallet and you're afraid that they had access to your credit cards and you're not sure how many you had in there and you think you canceled them all but you're not 100% sure. You can put a fraud alert on your credit report. And request that anybody that's pulling your credit contacts you directly before issuing that credit. And you also have the opportunity to put a consumer statement, and that's what this is right here. This person says that they were injured on the job and they couldn't make their car payments in 2007. Also remember, your alert, if you put one on there, only stays on there for 90 days. Your consumer statement's gonna stay on there till you remove it. So if you put something on there and 10 years later it's still showing up, that could cause you issues. So you don't want to set it and forget it. All right, so now this is how your accounts look on your credit report. We have example here, an electronics store, and let's go across the line there. Column 2 would be your account number. Column 3 is whose account, and it's got a J. Can anybody tell me what that would stand for? Join. And it says the date you opened it and how many months you've had it open, your date of last activity, the high credit, and then how much your payments were. And we have two different statuses. We have an R and an I. Can anyone guess what an R stands for? Revolving. That means that your payment is going to, it could potentially be different each month depending on what your balance is. Credit cards, obviously, would be revolving. All right, bank name. So let's pretend like that's Highlands Union Bank there. We've got your account number and we've got an A on there. Anybody guess what A would stand for? Authorized user. Example, when my daughter, she kills me when I would tell this story, but when she went off to college, I gave her a credit card for emergencies. She was an authorized user. That meant she could use it and I would pay the bill. Well, I found out real quick, her idea of an emergency and my idea of an emergency were not the same. So I had to pay.
She's watching.
Yeah, I know. She'll probably get me for that. She will agree that we have different definitions of emergency. So, in other words, be very careful who you give a credit card to as an authorized user. They have no responsibility to pay that debt, and they can use it for whatever they want. An example of when you might do that as a business owner, let's say that you have someone that works for you that has to go to purchase supplies for you. You may make them an authorized user on that account, but again, be very conscious of the fact you've given them basically a blank check there. They won't have any responsibility to pay that back. All right, so on that bank name, we're pretending like that's Highlands Union. The high credit was $8,000, and it says that it's an I-1. We talked about revolving, so can anyone tell me what the I may stand for? Installments. That means the payment's the same every month, like your house payment, your car payment, your business loan. If you were to go get a business loan, more than likely it would be a set payment every month. And then that third one is an auto finance company. We know that this is an I account. What would that be? We've talked about joint authorized user, individual. Tells us the date it's open, how many months it's been reviewed. High credit was 7,500, the monthly payment's 200, and it shows that we're past due, doesn't it? 2 payments. Actually, that status right there should be an I-2, it's showing an I-5. Normally, what you're gonna see there is you want yours to be a 1, and normally, that status is reflective of how many months you're past due. All right, so we're almost finished. Public record. This is where you're going to see bankruptcies, judgments, medical collections, things like that are going to be reported there. And it looks like this person had a tax lien. It appears to be a tax lien because it says Fulton City, and it's telling us that it was released, but the amount was $42,000. That's a pretty large lien. Also had a bankruptcy. There's 2 types of bankruptcy. Well, there's 1 or 2, but 2 primarily as an individual that you'll think of, and that's a Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 for individuals. Businesses, there's other variations that you would have, but a Chapter 7 is where the judge says, okay, we're discharging, you're not going to have to pay anything. You're done, you walk away. Chapter 13 is where you make that monthly payment. The judge says, okay, this is what you owe, this is what you have coming in. We're going to put you on a payment plan. 3 to 5 years, you're going to pay this debt back. I want to think that, I can't remember exactly what year it was now, that the law changed where people were abusing the Chapter 7, so now it's not as easy to get all your debt discharged. The judge is going to look at your debt and he's going to figure out whether you can make payments on it, and he's going to try to put you in a payment plan. But that's where that would show up. And then collections, medical collections are very common. As you all know, if you have any kind of procedure done, you get a bill from this lab, you get a bill from this doctor, you get bills from all over. Half the time I don't even remember even seeing the organizations that I've gotten medical bills from. So those are hard to keep up with, but you want to keep up with them because they will affect your credit if you don't. And I have found that most of them will allow you to make a $10 a month payment. They just want to see some kind of effort. So do that as opposed to letting it show up on your credit report. And then the last thing there is where inquiries, again, you go to that dealership and you let them pull your credit, more than likely they're going to send that to 10 different banks. So you're going to have 10 different inquiries on your credit report. You don't want to allow that to happen because that can hurt your score. So we're going to do a little activity here, and we're going to see what you all think about whether you would loan this person money based on this credit information. So we'll start right here. He wants to borrow $500. What do you guys think?
It doesn't look good, it doesn't look good, it's 2 months behind on car payment, he's got a collection, he's got bankruptcy. I don't think I would.
You're not feeling it. All right, Dexter, how about you?
You probably know.
No?
So are we in 2019?
We're going to pretend like we're in 07
Okay.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, this is dated. Good question. I know you're like, well, it's 12 years ago. Yeah. Good
That's my
question.
condition.
Oh.
We'll pretend like we're in 2007 and this is current information.
So $500?
Yeah?
Yes.
You would, okay. Tanya? No? Okay. How about you?
I would say, what's the security for it, is what I would ask.
Okay. Alan?
If I was the auto phone finance company and Yeah, that's a legitimate excuse, but we live in the real world that you're already 2 months behind.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to give you 2 more months
Well,
payment.
maybe he's gonna use it to catch his car payment up, right?
No. I call that the snowball effect. I
Yeah.
don't say no.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Rhonda, how about you?
I'm gonna say no.
No? Well, you are a tough crowd.
Well, I go on judge of character, you know, I look at the person,
Okay,
everybody's different. But I read people pretty well, everybody deserves a second chance for a first
Okay.
chance, so I would say,
all right. Dan?
I'd say probably not, but I don't see income information, that's somewhere
Okay.
else. I'd wanna see that.
All right.
Probably not.
No?
I would say definitely not.
Wow, you guys are tough. Stephanie?
I'm with Dan, I think with just what we know, no.
Okay. No? Wow. No.
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 Got any more collateral?
Okay, that's a good question.
Here's your car.
All right. No. Wow, this is a tough group. Okay, some of you made some really good points. What if I told you that he had a paid-for house that he was willing to let you put a lien on?
Yeah.
That changes.
Changes. What if I told you he'd been on his job 15 years and he was making good money and the only debt he has is that car payment that he shows you he's caught up on now?
Well, then why would he file bankruptcy 2 years ago?
They have
I
medical
don't know.
bills.
He could have had medical issues. I don't know, but that'd be a good question to ask. Why did you file bankruptcy? Could have been, I'm trying to see if it says individual, I was gonna say could have been a divorce. Everybody always likes to blame the spouse that's not there. But some of you all make some really good points there as far as the collateral makes a difference. Character makes a difference. If you look at his application, and it's really not fair to you all for me to ask you to do that, but it brings the point for you all to see from a lender standpoint, if all we have is this, and we don't have more of the story, and so if you have had some blips on your credit, you need to be prepared to answer those questions. You need to make yourself creditable, the tongue twister. Build that character. You need to realize maybe you're gonna need a cosigner. Maybe you need to work on your credit before you go to the bank and ask for that business loan. I just recently had a request from a borrower that is over his limit on like 2 credit cards. That is killing his credit score. He's like in the 500s because of that. But if he would just do some simple things like get that balance down below the limit, he's gonna see a jump in his credit score. So, you don't wanna be sitting across from a loan officer and them asking you questions. Well, what about this judgment that's on here? And you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. You wanna be prepared, right? So we're gonna talk about that as well. So, one thing that you can do to protect your credit, how many of y'all get that junk mail? That's credit card offers, 0% if you open a credit card with us. If you want to stop those from coming, you can call this number or you can go to optoutpressscreen.com and you can request to be removed from those. And then if any time you want to reverse that, you can do that as well, to where you could start getting those offers again. But I think that this is another way to protect your credit because somebody could go to your mailbox and pull out those offers, fill it out, and there's a chance they could get a credit card in their name. So just one other way to protect yourself. All right, my credit report contains information about my recent divorce. True or false? It's a false. It's a kind of a tricky one again, but it's not going to say that I was divorced, but you may see a joint mortgage on there and I'm applying for credit by myself. That's going to make me think there was at one time a spouse. So a credit report can tell a lot about a person, but it doesn't tell the whole story, and there's some things that are not included, and these are the things that would never be listed on your credit report. Some obvious ones. Some people think checking and savings accounts help them establish credit, and that does not. It could hurt your credit if the bank files a lien because you bounced a check, but it does not help your credit. Okay, so how can we get the credit report? How many of y'all have checked your credit in the last year? Raise your hand for me. Good job, good job. Okay, for those of you that have not, there's many more ways now than just this site, but this is the site that I've always told people they can go to. It's annualcreditreport.com. It is not my free credit report. It's not the one where the guy's singing in the commercial saying free credit report. This will not give you a score. You can pay extra for a score, but if you just want to access your credit report, you can do it on here and you can pull all three. I would not recommend pulling all three at one time. I just pull one, see if there's anything on there that I need to be concerned about. And then you could wait 4 months or so and check the other one. So you've got Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax that are available on this website. And another thing that you can do on this website is if you see something on there that you have no idea what it is, there is an option to hit dispute. And then you can dispute what is on there. And it'll give you some options to choose from. That then becomes the responsibility of that lender to prove you owe that money, okay? So I feel like this is a much more effective way of doing of disputing than putting a certified letter in the mail, making copies of the letter, when you can do it all electronically, and then it puts the burden on the creditor to then prove you owe it. Okay? I don't need to check my credit report because I pay my bills on time.
Oh.
Definitely false, yeah. All right, so why would you want to review your credit report and at least annually? You want to make sure that someone hasn't stolen your identity. Make sure that your information's accurate. And then if you have credit issues, if your score's not where you want it to be, then you can get a plan of action and start doing some things to try to improve your credit score. But if you just ignore it and put your head in the sand, that's not the solution. I have found many times where people think that credit score is worse than it is. And they'll say, well, I was in a car wreck 3 years ago. I'm sure that ruined my credit. And then we pull their credit and nothing was even on there pertaining to that. So, all right. It's up to the credit reporting agency to verify that the information is correct before they put it on your report.
False.
Why do we balance our checkbooks, right? The bank should do it right, but you want to check it and make sure that what's on there is correct. Okay, so I talked about you can use the that website. That's how I would encourage you to dispute an item, because you don't have to mail anything certified. You have a record of it. And then, like I said, that they have 30 days to prove that you owe it, and if they don't prove that you owe it, it has to be removed. So that would be the way that I would recommend that you do that. There's other ways you can contact the creditor directly. If you do that, and let's say you have a collection on there, it's $500, and you call them and say, listen, I just got my income tax returns. I can pay you $300 if you will accept that. Sometimes they'll do that. But make sure you get it in writing. Do not send money and not have something in writing that says they will say that it's paid in full and or they'll remove it from your credit. All right, so what is a credit score? How do they come up with that credit score anyway? What is the magic? I always equate it to like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. And in fact, there was a machine and it's like, I'm going to show you the formula, but another way that you can actually see your score, the annualcreditreport.com is not going to show you a score unless you pay for it. Credit Karma is another account that I personally use. I know that there's some credit cards that now offer this service as well. I use Credit Karma. The reason I like it is it shows me a score, and I can log into it every day if I want. And also, if an account's been opened in my name, they send me an email. So it's almost like having protection on your credit because you get notified if anything changes on your credit. So I would recommend that.
But does that show you the whole report or just the score?
That's the whole report.
Shows the,
It'll show you the whole.
because they only have 2 agencies,
No, you wouldn't get all three. And
Yeah.
and I've heard that the score that's on there may differ from what your bank will show you, and that's just because they're using a Vanguard score, but it should be within 10 to 15 points of what a bank would pull.
So you prefer that one over the annual credit report?
Annualcreditreport.com, I recommend it to go on there to check by credit, make sure everything on there is correct, and to dispute items on there. This one, Credit Karma, I use that one to protect my credit because they'll notify me if an account gets opened in my name. They'll email me. I know of a girl that I worked with before who actually got an email from them and said that her credit card had exceeded its limit, and she found out somebody had gotten her credit card number. And if she hadn't gotten, she would have found out eventually, but to know that really quick is helpful in trying to protect your credit.
And neither of these ones will be like a ding against you on your
No,
credit. Okay.
no. And the thing I like about Credit Karma is I can go in there whenever I want. Annualcreditreport.com, they're gonna allow you one of each one time a year. So it's kind of two different tools to use. Okay, so I wanna talk about how do they come up with that score anyway. All right, payment history, 35% of your score. That could be good, that could be bad, depending on how you paid your bills. Good news. That is based on the last 2 years of your credit payment history, okay? So that means if you've got some credit issues, you can start to make some difference quickly, and if something happened to you 5 years ago, yes, it's still showing up on there, but it's not gonna affect 35% of your score if you get all your payments on time, if you're doing a good job in the last 2 years. Another thing is a biggie, owed to creditors. If your limit's $1,000 and you're at $999, that's not good. If your limit's $1,000 and you're at $1,050, it's killing your score. You wouldn't believe how much does that much being over your limit. Because this is all calculated by a computer, all it knows is you're over your limit, and you don't want that. So you want to try to stay at least below, if you can, stay below 50% on your usage of your credit cards. Here's another thing. Length of credit history is another kicker, because have you heard closed credit cards don't close credit cards? You should close them, you shouldn't close them. What do you do? No. I used to date myself with this, really date myself now because it was Sears. Was my first credit card. And I got it in 1984. Don't do the math. I had somebody sit in the class going, that means you're that old? I'm like, yeah, thanks. My credit history before that card was no more went back to 1984. Installment debt doesn't do that for you. If you buy a house or a car, once you pay it off, that's closed. So it's not helping you with that debt on history. So that's why we say don't close the credit cards. As long as they're not charging you an annual fee. I don't pay annual fees. I won't keep a card that charges me an annual fee. So I don't recommend keeping those. But if it's a credit card and you're not using it, I would leave it open, just put it somewhere safe. So that you don't shorten your history. It only affects 15% of your score, but it's something you need to know about. Amount of new credit, that's a red flag. If, as a lender, think about it, you all just put that hat on. Let's say that you saw a whole bunch of credit cards just opened up on this guy. Wouldn't you go, ooh, something's going on here. I don't feel comfortable about that. So think about it from the lender standpoint of how that would look to you. And then types of credit is another kicker that goes into your score. What do they mean by that? They want to see a balance. They want to see you had some credit card, but you've also paid a car payment on time, because that means you know how to make a monthly payment on time. One of the things that does not help your score, those high interest rate finance companies will lead you to believe that you're establishing credit with them, but because this system knows that those are higher interest rate and that those are riskier lenders, it doesn't help your score like you think it would. So you would be better off if you're just trying to say establish credit to get a department store credit card. Normally they'll let you do that pretty easily. If you find you cannot get any credit, you can do a secured credit card with your credit union or your bank. Most of them offer that. And that would be where you would put $300 in a savings account, and they're gonna give you a credit card, your $300 limit, and let you borrow against, you're borrowing against that money that you've got in the savings account. And I've talked to some credit unions that will allow you to do that, and then after you show you could pay that for a year, they'll give you a regular credit card. So that's kind of a baby step way to get credit established. And if you can't do that, then you hope mom or dad are gonna give you that leg up and help you by co-signing. All right, do I need a credit score of 700 to get a preferred interest rate?
True.
True? Could be true. I'll say depends.
Depends on your collateral.
It could depend on that. It depends on the lender in this case, actually, because some lenders, like the place I worked before, you were either approved or you weren't, and the rate was the same. With our model, it is going to be, we do have a risk rating model, so there are going to be some things that we take into account when we're what you call pricing it or giving you an interest rate. But interestingly enough, credit score is not one of those. It's going to be other factors that are going to come into play. Most lenders have a minimum though. If you're at below 600, they can't help you, or whatever that score may be. So I would say this one's kind of a trick question too. It depends. It could be true depending on the lender. This is a kind of a busy slide, but how can you improve your credit score? First and foremost, check it and see what you're dealing with so that you know where you need to go, and then you can start a plan. Be sure to pay, make sure everything's accurate. If there's anything on there that's wrong, dispute it. Pay your bills on time. Keep those balances low. Consider limiting the number of credit cards you use. Do you really need to have 10 credit card balances? No, probably not. You would be better off to get them all on one low one and start paying them off. I'm not a proponent of credit card debt, but credit cards do have a benefit in helping you establish credit. They have a benefit in helping you manage small monthly expenses for your business. So you could use it for business expenses, then you have that information for your taxes, but you've got to pay it off every month. It's not the way you want to finance your business, for sure. Reduce inquiries. You're not going to let people pull your credit unless you're ready to buy. And avoid companies who claim they can improve your score if you only give them $700 or whatever. Okay, there's no magic wand to this. There's no secret to it. And I have, unfortunately, I've met people that have paid hundreds of dollars to have a company fix their credit, and there's no such thing. Oh, these are questions, and that one gives you the answer. So, how long does a consumer owe borrowed money? Until they pay it, settle it, or bankrupt it. That's different than how long does it show on your credit report. So how long can a derogatory information be reported by the credit bureau?
7 years.
7 years, you guys are good. 7 years and 180 days. I don't know why they get an extra 180 days. How long can the creditor pursue the consumer in the court system to force payment? I've got a Tennessee and a Virginia answer here. Any guesses?
2 years.
2? Try 20 in Virginia or 10 in Tennessee.
That's a lobby.
I hope they don't go after politicians. They done forgot it by then.
Well, true. That doesn't mean they will, but they can. So in summary, good credit's a valuable financial asset. Review your report. Keep your credit card balances low. Pay your bills on time. And protect your credit. Please. Questions? Yes.
Well, it's fresh on my mind. You were just talking about company credit cards.
Mhm.
And that, for me, that was, I thought, okay, we do have one. I opened it up when we first started. And it, of course, I haven't paid it off because I used it, but it's not much, but I used it for startup expenses.
Okay.
Would it do me better? Of course, every month we're open. Like in 2 or 3 more months, it should be gone. Would it be smarter to, if the bank would give me a small loan to pay off my credit card and know the bank, or leave it? I owe way less than 50% of my limit. What would you advise?
It would depend on the rate you're paying and on, the rate you would get on the loan. If you're that close to paying it off, if
Probably
you weren't.
realistically, let's say 6 months.
Okay. It sounds like you may be using that for working capital, and there's a better structure for you through a bank, to have a working capital line of credit, is what they call it. So you're able to take it out when you need it and pay it back whenever you get that money. Maybe you're waiting on, I don't know that it would apply to your business, but a business that sells a product and gives their customers 30 or 45 days to pay them. Or if you're dealing with the government, or if you're dealing with Medicaid payments, insurance payments, those things can take a while. You'd be better off to have a line of credit with your bank. That the requirement with those is they have to be paid down to $0 at least one time a year. So that's how it differs. That's what makes it a line of credit as opposed to a term loan.
Okay.
So I would check into it.
It depends. When you
Yeah.
said that, it kind of, oh shoot, maybe I need to do something differently.
Yeah, you don't want to typically use credit cards for that. You would want to use a credit card for monthly expenses that you're paying off every month, because that's an expensive way to finance your business. Yeah. Good question. Yes.
So you said something about the people that can fix your credit. I talked to someone that did that or whatever, and they were looking at what I had and said that a few things that were on my credit that the original creditors did not record properly. So every time that my credit runs or reports or whatever, it's showing that it's new debt, and I've had it for 10 years or more. So is there a way, because what he was saying is that, of course, if I paid him, you know, that he could go in and dispute those because they weren't recorded properly, that he'd be able to take like over half of what I have there. Most of mine is over 7 or 8 years old. That most of them weren't recorded properly, so he could get rid of most of it. So I mean,
You can go on there and dispute them on that annual credit.
Oh, so I can do it
report.com.
myself?
Yeah, you can do
Okay.
it yourself on there. And if it got into an issue where you needed some additional help, there are organizations that can help. Actually, the presentation that I have here is from an organization called Money Management, and you shared a jump drive, didn't you all share a jump drive?
Yes.
Okay, there is a book in there about credit that goes over some of the things that I did, and their contact information's on there. You could reach out to them. They do charge a fee, but it's a very small, like $35 or something. But you can go on there yourself and dispute it. I would not pay somebody.
yeah, I didn't plan to because it was like outrageous anyway. Like I
Yeah.
probably could have paid off a couple of
Yeah,
them.
they normally
yeah.
are. Yeah.
And so, but I didn't know, like, the way he was talking is that, oh, I have to do, like, I'm certified, I'm special, like, I have to do this for you, so I didn't know if that was a
Yeah,
thing or not.
yeah. No, you can go on that annualcreditreport.com and do it yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
There's debate about whether you're better off every month, assuming you can, to pay your credit card balances down to zero, or carry a balance. I know the 30% number is key, but is it better to have it, leave a small balance, or pay it to zero if you can do that? Not the money.
No, I don't think that there's any time that carrying, not, in my personal opinion, that any time carrying a credit card balance past that 30-day period is a good idea. You're still getting the benefit of that account being open, even though it's a zero balance. And that's why credit cards do something different than a car loan or a home loan do. They're just another tool to manage for your credit, but I never recommend carrying a balance on a credit card. It's not, there's no benefit that I'm aware of that would help you. Any other questions? I'm gonna turn it over to Gary. My contact information's there. Feel free, if you think of something after, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you in any way that I can. Oh, I don't know what happens to do now. Here comes. IT support, here she comes.